Good morning on this Sunday, September 14th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang after a difficult political week. After Charlie Kirk's killing, Georgia leaders call for calm, civility, and answers. Also, an ICE raid at Savannah's Hyundai plant stirs diplomatic anger and raises questions about worker visas. Also, Georgia Democrats demand Governor Kemp recall National Guard troops from D.C. Kathy, Phil, and Martha are all here. Alicia Thomas-Cersei is filling in for Theron. Welcome back. Welcome back, Kathy. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
The killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk has shaken college campuses and political circles across the country, including right here in Georgia. Governor Brian Kemp, Senators John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock, and UGA Chancellor Sonny Perdue are among those condemning the violence and calling for renewed efforts to protect free speech and civil debate. Questions are growing about how to balance safety, expression, and rising tensions across the nation. And we're learning now that 22-year-old Tyler Robinson has been taken into custody in connection with the crime. We'll be getting a lot more details, we know, over the next few days, few months, over how all of this happened, how all of this transpired, and how the arrest was finally able to happen. Kathy, welcome back. I'd really like to start with you this week. With some conservative voices have pointed fingers at liberal rhetoric. Some progressives have pointed those fingers back. How do we avoid this tragedy becoming just another partisan flashpoint?
Well, we have a lot of work to do to get there. I think that what's really important in this time, and when it's not this time, right, is that we quit calling each other names. You know, it's just so quick to call people, I'm not even going to start, you know, but instead to try to unpack issues, to talk about policies, and not talk about people's identities in the process. And I think as a country, we've gotten way out of line in that regard. And, you know, again, on both sides, you're going to see people fighting back when they get insulted or they feel like they're under attack. And it does not justify this by any stretch of the imagination. It was horrible. It adds to our nation's trauma about gun violence. It adds to our nation's trauma about fearing, you know, civil war, or, you know, or hopefully, you know, that doesn't ever happen. But, you know, I think people are at a flashpoint, and you know, this is a tragic situation. And let me just say, my heart goes out to his wife and his children. You know, I don't say that as a, you know, thoughts and prayers kind of thing. It must be devastating to both have that on film, but also, you know, see your spouse go out the door and have them not come back. And I feel terrible about that.
And I think, Phil, Governor Cox on Friday, Governor Cox of Utah, had some really powerful words. I think we kind of wanted to hear this type of message from some leader coming out to say enough, and we're at a turning point, no pun intended, right? But we are at a turning point. Which way do we go?
Well, I did hear Governor Cox's remarks too, and I share your condolences for the family. It's awful. 31 years old and an apostle for free speech. And I think the governor pointed this out, and a lot of people are pointing out that whatever you think of his politics, he engaged with his opponents far more than the people who agreed with him. And that's kind of why I got into journalism too. I like to hear all sides of the story, and yeah, I have my own core values and opinions, as we all do on this show. And actually, I would think, Lori, this show is kind of a demonstration of how you can have deeply held beliefs and still argue them out and maybe disseminate information that the viewers don't know about. But I think with regard to Charlie Kirk, he was an amazing person because he drew crowds of 3,000-4,000 people. I don't know of anyone on the hard left that was appealing to youth like that drew this amount of people. And again, I like the fact that he said freedom of speech is very important. I know a lot of liberals still believe in that too, and I hope more do, because I've always believed more speech the better, and more dialogue the better, and that's what he believed. And yes, he was a very staunch Christian, he was a staunch conservative, and he asked probing questions, but I like that. I mean, we all should be curious in life, just as human beings, about some of the things that I've actually debated here on the show since I've been here since 2003. I've actually learned a lot from my opponents, didn't always agree with them. Sometimes I tell my compatriots, well, you're half right, and you know, then I try to explain the other half. But why are they half right? Because they actually are interested in policy like I am. They may disagree deeply with my policies, but I think that's good for the country. I'm still hopeful. I'm upset what happened, but I'm hopeful.
Alicia, let's talk about that because, you know, Charlie Kirk really did attract a lot of young people. I mean, traveling across so many hundreds of college campuses. And, you know, I was thinking, I'm like, gosh, you're not safe on college campuses now, at political rallies, right? On subways, right? I mean, state lawmakers, are they even safe at their own homes? Like, where are we? And what message are we sending to these young people?
Yeah, it's a great point, and obviously it's deeply sad and it's scary that when we talk about the proliferation of guns, we have to talk about that issue as well. Who this person is, we'll soon find out, and how he got access to this gun and all of that. And we want to feel safe wherever we go. I think we also have to think about, though, the violence of words. And how that has also contributed to this. I think there are several things that can be true at once. No one should die for expressing how they feel. No one should die based on what they believe. I vehemently disagree with a lot of the things that Kirk believed. And I don't agree that he was a good person. I think some of the things that he espoused are very troubling. I think that when you say things like Dr. King was not a good person, that he was awful, when you say that if he
didn't really say that. I have to jump in and correct.
He said many times that if he sees a black pilot on a plane, he wonders if that person is qualified. When talking about black women, he says that black women don't have the processing power to be taken seriously. And so when you use words like that, when you divide people like that, you are inviting violence. Here's a statistic that I came across the other day, that there have been 25 violent acts against political figures since 2016, between 2016 and 2025. Before that, there were 2 over a 20-year period.
But are you saying that the Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota invited violence with their words? I mean, you can't just make a blanket statement saying that words create violence.
Allow me to finish. Mm-hmm. Clearly, this is happening to a lot of people on both sides. Mm-hmm. The point that I'm making is this violent, very divisive language has ramped up significantly since 2016, and I believe it is part of why we are here. And so to your point about what we can do so that we do feel safe, as you mentioned, the governor of Utah, we've got to ramp down this language. We've got to be careful about the words we use. We have to be careful when you have a rally with 3,000 people, how you speak about others. And that is also what we need to talk about.
So you want to shut up some people that have controversy.
It's about what you say and how you say it. As upset as I've been about this, I've been very careful about my language sitting here today because I understand the platform that I have. I cannot, as a leader in any form, use language that's going to continue to divide people. As leaders, we have a responsibility to speak up, to ask for unity,
Martha,
and to say this is not okay.
I knew Charlie Kirk. I interviewed him when he was very young before I went out to run for office, and met him a couple times. I wasn't a friend of his because I didn't have a lot of interaction, but then in June I went to his Young Women Leadership Conference. I was invited to that. They had more than 12,000 women, mothers and daughters, out there learning about how to be politically active, how to talk about things, how to be good wives and mothers, and they also have a men's group. Erica Kirk released a statement this morning that Friday morning that was a gut-wrenching statement. And I would disagree that people that are pulling out comments that were made without listening to the context, there isn't anybody in the political debate, and he's no longer in the political debate, that was actually listening to people, having good conversation back and forth, being respectful. And if you watch him from start to finish, I didn't agree with everything that he said, but he was not vicious or nasty or yelling and screaming. I would disagree, and I would challenge you to actually watch clips. But clips are not what you watch. You have to watch the whole thing.
Kathy.
Well, you know, I think the bigger context for this is what social media has done to our ability to interact with each other. I mean, I think if you think about sort of the evolution of social media and the evolution of how people interact on it, you know, we have really lost any ability to contain our thoughts, right? On social media, you just kind of hide behind whatever you type. You can say whatever you want. There's kind of no repercussions. But face to face, you can't do that with people, right? That's, you might get slugged in the face, you know, like, you know, there's things to do. And I think there's also a responsibility, right? I am totally for free speech, but I think you have to have some personal responsibility about how you interact with others, what you say to others, how you conduct yourself. I mean, at some point that, you know, sort of discretion and restraint and frankly basic manners are important, and we have lost sight of that as a country. And I think we really, you know, have got to, you know, spend more time thinking about, you know, how do we put the phone down? You know, how do you read something that makes you crazy before you respond? You know, because you remember growing up, you know, your parents would say, don't go running out the door and say the first thing that comes out of your head. You know,
think before you speak.
Think before you speak, and we don't do that anymore.
And our president should model that.
You're right.
Yeah, our president should model
You're making a good point, but I think that obviously there's abuse on both sides. You're right about social media, but I will say this: I've been involved in my career in controversial opinions. I was an editorial writer, an editorial page editor for most of my career. Even in college, I wrote a column. People called me stupid and all sorts of names. But you know what? That's okay. Now there's a point where if you go beyond, you're wrong, or if people want to say I'm wrong, that's fine. I want to give my view, but so yeah, I think there's going to be name calling. There's going to be hardball in politics. We're not going to stop that. Now you are right. When Biden and Democrats say that people are fascists on the other side and Nazis, that is, I think, an example of where, wait a minute, stop that.
But
Those
you
are
know,
horrible people.
Let's not just compare horribleness, because that's just pointless,
Well,
Phil.
right,
I mean, really,
I'm not saying the right is always right.
Let me give you
We're all guilty
But think
of it.
about
But
that.
let me
Both
give you a
sides.
great example. Let me give you a great example. Because everybody wants to bring up President Trump and always want to throw in the comment about that.
Because he's the leader of this nation.
Excuse me. When President Trump was faced, didn't know Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died. And she was not, they had gone back and forth. And he made the most gracious statement about her, was kind and loving, and said a wonderful thing about her. That was a person he was a political opponent with. So let's not always, it is so easy for the left to go in there and say, but Trump, on everything that they say.
So let's not say
Take
it's
some
easy for the
responsibility.
left. Let's just say, as people, some of us, maybe left, maybe right, maybe center, find offense with the way he conducts
Of course,
himself
every day.
because it is abnormal, right? We have a president.
Other presidents have had this
No.
back and forth
We
with
have
Never had
people.
social media
We have-
one like he has.
All right,
have-
let's hear from Alicia real quick.
I want to give Phil a compliment. We all get feedback from viewers. And people ask me all the time, how do you sit next to Phil and not want to knock him out? But the truth is, I say to them all the time, of all of the folks on this panel, you and I have the best conversations off camera. And I think that is how this is supposed to go. We disagree on a lot of things, but I enjoy having conversations with you because I get to understand how you feel, what you think, and you listen to how I feel and what I think. That's what we need more of. What we don't need more of is a president who now is going to give this man a Medal of Freedom. Why? What has he done except for divide people? And so while we honor his life and we appreciate the fact that he created discourse in this country, we cannot sanitize the things that he's done and said that have contributed to the violence in this country. That's a problem, and we have to be honest about that as well.
Okay. I'm going to leave it at your comments about you and Phil, because I think that is why people tune into the show and why they enjoy it, because they like to see Republicans and Democrats disagree, agree to disagree, and do it civilly. And that's what we do on this show. And that's what Dick Williams started, and it's what we try to continue every single week. So we'll leave it there and we'll move on.
Yeah, thanks for the compliment.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Coming up, detained, deported, divided, fallout grows after the Hyundai immigration raid. We'll discuss next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
At the heart of Georgia's electric vehicle boom, a major controversy has erupted. Nearly 500 workers, including more than 300 South Korean workers, were detained in a sweeping ICE raid at the Hyundai LG battery plant construction site near Savannah. A chartered flight carried many of those workers back home on Thursday. Phil, ICE says it's enforcing visa laws, but critics say this was overreach and a PR disaster. Do you think the agency handled this appropriately, or did they risk alienating one of Georgia's really most important economic allies?
Well, it's a complex issue, so we'll have to all unpack it on the panel. First of all, there's obviously illegal workers there working at the battery plant on this giant 3,000-acre complex. And so under U.S. law, yeah, you have to go after illegal workers that are taking jobs from American workers. On the other hand, as we all know, there's over 20 visa categories for businesses that are bringing in people to actually foreign people to train American workers. And this is what was going on here at the Meta plant, as they call it, in the battery area that was under construction. I think that, yes, ICE did the right thing, and it actually might be a good thing. Even South Korea is a key ally, but sometimes allies take advantage of other allies. And I think the fact that everybody thought it was hunky-dory there in Savannah, they had meetings for over a year and a half. The South Koreans said, oh, we won't have any illegal workers. Well, they did. And so we got to fix it. So I think we can have bipartisan agreement, because on the panel before, I think we all agree that guest worker programs are good if we can't find American workers. Under law, you have to look for American workers first. If they're not there, we turn to visas, the B1 being the most popular one. I think all of us could agree Congress has ignored this under the Biden administration. Sorry, this was ignored. They turned the other way when illegal workers are working. There were no workplace raids at all under the Biden administration, so there are going to be now. I think this can be fixed. Congress needs to do it. I think that the South Koreans and others, we all want foreign investment, and Trump wants that. Biden wanted that. So I think that we need to fix the broken visa system. Almost half of all illegals here have just overstepped their visas.
Kathy, Hyundai is one of the many international companies choosing Georgia. Do you think that this kind of controversy could really cool that kind of investment?
Well, it's going to slow it down. I mean, I think the South Koreans have already indicated until this visa situation gets straightened out, there's not going to be any reason to be flying people over there to, participate in these investments. And South Korea has made a big commitment to President Trump to invest in this country. And so I think, we're not going to see that stuff start anytime soon. Let me just remind everybody that Biden had a comprehensive immigration bill that Trump encouraged Republicans not to support. But just put it out there. But this is a political blunder of like the highest degree, right? I mean, Governor Kemp had to have been notified in advance that this was going on. If he wasn't, that's a whole other thing. And if I were him, I'd be speaking out about it, right? There were ways, to sort of address this situation short of a big performative show of hauling 500 people out of there. Because, some of those people had visas. They thought they were here doing things legally. Never mind that the visa situation is a mess. But, in normal times, what would happen is somebody would call the governor and say, hey, we've got this problem. How do we handle it? And they would quietly sort of deal with it, right? And then if there were people who were completely illegally here, then those are the people that you take out. That didn't happen. That happens less and less these days. And I think, we've got to return, you don't want to do things secretly. That's not my point. But my point is it didn't need to go down that way. And it did. And I think that that's unfortunate for everybody involved.
Martha, do you have any inside scoop of how it all went down? If the governor was, given a heads up? Or?
I don't have anything on that. But what I want to say is that I think that what I'm hearing from folks is that, one, they hope that this is not something that was intended to make Governor Kemp look bad, because there is still that little bit of tension between Governor Kemp and President Trump. But the second thing is that from lots of Republicans and other people, what I'm hearing is that while this may have been legitimate, what this is not, I'm not going to say not what they voted for, because I think that's a trite statement. But what they want to see more work on is on sex trafficking and on these kinds of illegal immigrants that are engaging in criminal activity. Most people do not view people working in a plant like that as criminal activity. It may be, and the visa may be overshot, but they don't look at it that way. So I think the concern, and then maybe they should, but there's a whole lot of things they could have addressed first before this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that they would have made more of an impact. People care about gangs. They care about crime on the street. They care about stopping what happened on the train in Charlotte. They care about those kinds of things. It's not they don't care about that, but I think it was complex, as you say, Phil, and I agree with you about that, but I think there's a little confusion about this.
Good point. Alicia?
I agree with you, Martha, and I also have 2 points here. I'm concerned about, frankly, Governor Kemp's legacy here. This was the largest economic development project in our state's history. This is a part of his legacy, which now is in question because what will happen in the future of this particular plant? There's also a human side of this. I keep wondering what happened when these kids of folks who were picked up got off the school bus and their parents were gone. What did the school do? Who picked up the kids? Where did they eat?
Well, I mean, arrests happen in countries. I mean, we separate
hold on,
people every day.
Allow me to finish. So there's also a local impact on what happens in communities to children and families when these raids happen. And I think if there was some notice, why wasn't this handled differently? Why didn't they go in and say, here are the folks who have visas who are in jeopardy, these are not. Let's have a process in place and not just haphazardly come in with ski masks and have a raid. That shouldn't be the American way, and we shouldn't be handling families this way either.
All right, we'll leave it there.
Yeah,
Real
I
quick,
think
Phil.
it's going to be a lesson where they can fix the process a
Absolutely.
lot better. Let me just say one quick thing, Lori. A whistleblower originally brought this to the attention, and he said, and I think we can all agree on this, he said that people have died in the construction area, and these were illegal workers, and they weren't all South Koreans, and that several people have been injured in recent months, and that's got to stop too. These subcontractors and contractors need to be held accountable.
All right, we'll leave it there. Georgia Democrats are blasting Governor Kemp's decision to send state troops to Washington, why they call it unconstitutional, and a dangerous show of loyalty to President Trump. We'll discuss after the break.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Georgia Democrats are demanding Governor Brian Kemp recall hundreds of National Guard troops he sent to Washington, D.C. In a scathing letter, lawmakers call the move unconstitutional, a waste of taxpayer money, and a dangerous precedent that puts politics ahead of public safety. Kathy.
Well, I wanted to kind of tie this a little bit to this Hyundai thing. Governor Kemp keeps trying to get the president to stop hating him, I guess. And I felt like when they sent these National Guard troops, it was sort of a little after the fact. The sort of peak story had sort of rolled on. These are people who have lives. This costs money. They're unnecessary, and they're up there picking up trash on the National Mall. And I think it's unfortunate. If I were Kemp, I would quit trying to appease Trump so much, because he sends up these guys so the show can continue for Trump, and then the next thing you know, he's got this Hyundai thing, burning up in his backyard. I think he needs to demand a little more loyalty in return before he starts giving up the goods.
Well, I don't think the two have anything to do with each other, but I'm in full support of him supporting the D.C. area with National Guard, and I think it's a great idea. But it also shows you kind of what we just saw with the arrest in the Charlie Kirk case. That was federal agencies working with local and state authorities and getting law enforcement done quickly. And that's what we need to see in D.C., and that's what we do in Hall County every single day. We've worked with federal agencies on things, and it works better because they have expertise that we don't, so I support it.
Alicia.
I'm with with Kathy on this. It doesn't make sense. It definitely looks and feels like a political ploy, these political games that are being played. And Martha, you mentioned it a few minutes ago about whether or not the Hyundai thing was about whether or not they wanted to make Governor Kemp look bad. So I think he is trying to score points, and I think this is the wrong way to do it, by wasting Georgia taxpayer dollars. And I wonder if any governor or mayor would appreciate someone from another jurisdiction sending people to their jurisdiction. So I just think it's bad politics, it's bad policy, and it's not good for public safety. And it's unnecessary.
Well, I'll answer you. There's one prominent liberal Democrat who loves this and bringing in National Guard troops from other states, which is nothing wrong with that. It's our nation's capital. I would think all 50 governors would say, can I help? But the mayor of D.C. completely has changed. She's a dedicated liberal. She said, this is great. Crime has gone way down. And I never heard either of you talk about public safety here.
Crime was already
come
down
on.
in D.C.
No, it wasn't.
It absolutely was.
It was from a horrendous level to a more or less horrendous level.
But
How
do you
about
realize
that?
they have no law enforcement power?
Well, the point is, it's backup. That's what they needed backup. And the mayor, your Democrat mayor of Washington loves it.
All right, we'll
She
leave it
does
there
not.
because I got to have time for winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Alicia, we'll start with you.
It's been a minute, so I'm going to try to do this very quickly. I want to give a shout out to Officers Ron Reed and Sergeant Green at the Atlanta airport. They do a great job, and they were very helpful the last time I was there. Congrats to my Uncle Ralph Searcy, my husband's uncle, who is retiring this month as a captain of the Upson County Sheriff's Department after 47 years of service. He is amazing.
That's great.
An unsung hero of the family for sure. And then happy 90th birthday to Deanne Bonner. She is the former Cobb NAACP president. We celebrated her this week at the Strand Theater. Everybody from Roy Barnes and judges and community people, thank you, Deanne Bonner, for your trailblazing and allowing us to stand on your shoulders.
All right, Martha.
Yeah, Claire Bartlett, who we talked about last week, is home and recovering, so we wish her well as she goes through and recovers. Jeff Hood from Oconee County, he's a great watcher of the program, and he is my roving reporter, so he always keeps me on my toes. And I just want to say, you need to parent your children, you need to vote, and you need to have a face-to-face conversation with someone.
Amen. Phil.
Well, winner Charlie Kirk, a great apostle for conservatism and Christianity and freedom of speech. And also another winner is Governor Kemp's daughter, Lucy Kemp, 24 years old, just graduated as a state trooper. Talking about law enforcement here. So good for Lucy Kemp, and best wishes.
Congrats to her. That's awesome.
Way to go.
Good choice.
So my dad is from Worth County, so I have to note that my winner this week are the Worth County High School football team, because they're #1 in their class. They've always been an awesome football power, and they're back on top, so I'm proud of them. And my loser this week, it's got to be Governor Kemp. I mean, he's gotten himself caught in a vise of playing politics with this administration. It's not paid off for him, and I think he's got some stuff to straighten out. And I also think we ought to take a real close look at the state election board and the tension between them and the Secretary of State, and how we're going to get these cases handled.
That was on the list. We'll discuss that next week. Everybody make it a good one. Bye-bye.